What's up, guys? This episode of Mark Bell's Power Project is brought to you by Piedmontese Beef.
There we go, talking about beef again. Dude, you know I'm on a high-carb, low-fat diet. There's no way I can have amazing ribeyes, New York strips, and all that good stuff. There's just way too much fat in it. Why are you going to just like sit there and tease me with all this stuff?
You know, the cool thing about like Piedmontese is that it kind of falls in line with, you guys know about Mark's protein leveraging diet, where he goes pretty low fat, pretty low carb, and really high protein. And Piedmontese fits right into that because literally every single cut of their beef has a lot of protein and minimal fat. So you can just like eat lots and lots of it and not be intaking a crazy amount of fat. Unlike if you're going to go to your butcher and get some ribeye or something else, it's going to be too much fat in there and it's not that great for dieting.
But what without that low fat? It's got to taste terrible.
Yeah, that's what people would think. But no, this meat is tender. It's still juicy. It's really, really good. It really doesn't make sense to me, but it's just great.
For more information, please head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping.
Mark, this is a dope setup.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for coming by today.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I think last time you were at ST was like 2008 or 9 or something, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm. My last powerlifting meet ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I did my first bodybuilding show like 9 weeks later.
Decided you were tired of being fat.
Yeah. I needed a girlfriend. Girls like abs.
Yeah. It used to be real lonely in powerlifting. I've talked to the So Ronry. It used to be really lonely. And then all of a sudden, now every fat powerlifter has a girl with them too, though.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think the girls got into the squat and deadlift and bench, maybe. I don't know.
They're trying to build that booty.
All right, we're good to go now. Sorry about that.
We're good now?
We're good. We're great.
All right. Well, we're here today with my buddy Chris, and Chris has been in powerlifting, bodybuilding, and recently I went to the show that you had up in Tahoe, and you were hosting the show. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Bojana.
Say it again?
Bojana.
Did I get it right?
Yes.
You did.
All right, good. Whew, Bojana.
How about the last name, though?
Vasiljevic.
Vasiljevic?
Oh, yeah.
Vasiljevic.
He can pronounce anything.
Well, because he has people mess up his name all day long, and he's tired of it, so he's working on it.
Yep.
But it was great seeing you guys up at that show, and then when we were watching the show, we were like, who's the host of the show? I see so much more jacked than everybody else on the stage. And it was you. Really cool to see you guys putting on a show, especially, in these times where a lot of gyms are shut down, a lot of things are just stifled, and people are, it's messing with people from a mental perspective, and so it's great to see people pushing forward, pushing the envelope. How hard was it to get that show? How hard was it to run that show? It seemed like it was difficult. It's outside. It's in Tahoe.
Yeah, unbelievably hard. Of course, that show is normally at the Mont Bleu showroom, at the Mont Bleu Casino, and that's a great showroom. Everything's built in, and here we had to build everything, including the roof. On the Thursday prior to the show, we got an email from the county that said the show couldn't happen, and our tent was almost completed at that time, and we went out. I went out to the tent crew and said, pack it up. This ain't happening. And we're trying to find other locations and try to figure out how we do it. At the same time, hammering the county, like, come on. We've got hundreds of people coming in. They're counting on us. And it was actually, it seemed to be the crew at the resort at Squaw Creek got to somebody, and we were able to resubmit the permit and got to have the show. But now at that point, we're behind 24 hours. So 50% of our setup time is gone now. So we have to do it all, and we're building a roof and we're building walls and we're bringing the lights and the sound. And we're out there probably till 1 a.m. before the show. And Tahoe, 1 a.m, it's about 36 degrees. So I'm out there pounding steaks. And you do what you got to do. The wind's blowing at 30 miles an hour. I mean, but it was probably one of the most unique looking shows. I know the competitors love the destination. You were there, you walk in, you're like, holy crap, like this is an amazing valley. The sense of arrivals is really cool, and just the fact that we're there for them. And that's, at the end of the day, that's why I'm willing to do this. Believe me, I'm not making any money at this point. It's just being there, being present. And I can't, I know 175 people competed that show, and if I'm to tell them and we're going to cancel, I feel that pain 175 times. And each person has their own reason for being there, and sometimes it's for Instagram, but others say, hey, I'm doing this for my father who died last year, or I'm doing this to stay sober. And when they hear the show is canceled, what is going to be their next step? So I have to make sure I do everything in my power to make sure that's going to happen.
They're like, oh, thanks, Chris, and they just start pounding beer, eating some cheesecake.
See this IG story with myself tagged in with this drunk guy. I'm off the wagon.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for nothing. How did you guys meet up? How did this happen?
At Gold Gym Venice.
Where everything happened.
Exactly.
Okay, you're in the posing room. All right, I'm following along.
No.
Nice glutes. Okay, I've heard the story before.
I was actually close to the posing room, but not in the posing room. I was doing cardio back in the third room at the Gold Gym Venice, and I was with my coach, and he asked me, hey, do you know who is that guy there who just entered the room? I was like, I have no idea. He said, like, well, that guy promoted Tahoe Show and you competed last year there. And yeah, I did compete at the Tahoe Show, but I never met him. And then my coach asked me, like, well, you're planning to do this year again Tahoe Show. Let's go and say hi. I know Chris. I'm going to just say hi and introduce you. And I was feeling so awkward, like, what I'm going to do? Like, hi, I'm going to do your show. And that's it. Like, I was like, no, I'm not going to go there. And we started kind of a little bit fighting. And he just was kind of so pissed off, like, you're so socially awkward. Like, you cannot just be like that. But I just moved from my country. My English was so bad. And I just was feeling really awkward, actually. So he was training and just disappeared at some moment. And I was thinking, like, oh, thank God I don't have to go and say hi to some unknown guy. I don't care. I even wasn't sure if I'm going to do that show again because I didn't place good first year. I placed horrible. That was my worst show that year. And we was exiting the gym and he was there. So it was necessary just to stop and say hi. And my coach introduced me to him. We start talking, and later we keep in touch on Facebook for months. And we didn't start dating like...
That was like 3 months.
Yeah, 3-4 months
So we
after.
took a picture together, and you could see by her body language that I should slip into her DMs. So
It was very clear.
It was
hard to do it these days.
She was all up on me.
I have no
I'm finding some holes in the story already because we know that Chris doesn't like to do cardio. So, Chris, what were you doing in the cardio section?
I was in the cardio room.
Cardio room.
You have to walk through there to get to the posing room.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
If you know golds.
Yeah. And then I did his show again that year. And I again didn't place well. And it was interesting. I placed well at all other shows. And then I do Tahoe, nothing. And then next year after that again. And 3 years in a row, I placed very bad at his show. And I was coming like, let's say that last year was like Chicago Pro top 3 and then LA Pro top 4. And I'm coming to his show ready. I'm not looking any worse than previous shows. 11th, 13th place or something like that.
She needed third to go to the Olympia. And
Yeah, that
I'm
year.
sorry, you don't get any favors at my show.
Yeah, so like, okay. After that, it wasn't actually option for me anymore to do his shows because people would think
politically
weird things.
I don't like
yeah.
it. You know, people are going to sue. I mean, it was
Yeah.
actually like really good that she did poorly at my show because if anybody accuses me of it, I'm like, I could have sent her to the Olympia. I could have made her $3,000, but no, she stayed home for the Olympia.
Like we make sure she finishes dead last every single year.
Exactly. I need her handing out trophies anyway.
Do you guys find it easier being like a fitness couple, like kind of tackling some of this stuff together, or like maybe in previous relationships where somebody else wasn't maybe as much into fitness? Like, is it easier or harder? Because maybe you're together too much, or maybe you're too like-minded. Like, what do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's really easy. I'm not sure how we could have been had the success we've had if we weren't with someone who understands the industry. You know, when she walks in my office and I have some lady's crotch blown up 400% because I'm photoshopping, she doesn't think anything of it. But if somebody didn't know and they see this on the screen, they might be upset.
500%. She would be like, "Hey, we have to have a conversation."
That's the line. Everybody's got those bumps down there. You gotta get rid of them. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of synergy that happens. You know, I get to be in places that promoters don't usually get to be in, you know, backstage at Olympia or the Arnold, and really see their experience firsthand. And no other promoters get to do that. So I can see what they're doing right, but I can also see areas that they need to improve, which gives me an opportunity to offer something that may be even better than some of those other shows in some respects. And as far as I mean, I don't prep anymore. She does. And sometimes, you know, she does a lot of shows, so she's off prepping most of the year. But she's good at it. You know, if she was one of these new amateurs, they've done 2 or 3 shows that were a nightmare. I mean, I hear you were a nightmare. Your first
Falling apart.
first and only bodybuilding show. That would be tough, but she's a professional.
Yeah. In terms of like right now, you guys are promoting shows together. You said you've only been together for 3 years?
6.
6? Oh, okay. But how did that work, implementing like your business in together? Like, how did you start learning about it? Did you already know about show promoting, or how'd that work?
No, I'm just learning from him, and I'm just helping a little things around there, because I'm mostly focused on my prep, but I'm doing everything what he needs at the show day, around the show. So it's basically at the show day, I'm just responsible for trophies. I know it sounds like this is a fun job, but it's not fun at all. And everything has to be lined up exactly and properly.
Chris has you working hard over there, huh?
Yes.
She disappears for a few hours as she organizes these things.
Yeah.
She has a lot of roles throughout the event, but I'm the manager, I'm the director. She could probably put on a show, and she may have to put on a show in Russia this year. Currently, the borders are closed for Americans to go to Russia, but she's a Serbian citizen, and it's supposed to open for Serbia on November 1st. So she may be taking that role for the first time in Russia. Wow. You know, I might as well throw her in somewhere where nobody speaks the language.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you, Bojana, you're around it, you're working either to compete or you're working to keep these shows, you know, together. How are you not getting sick and tired of the sport entirely?
No, I just feel that that's my kind of food. I couldn't live without that.
Yeah, that's great.
I just figured out during all these years that this is something that keeps me moving. Mm-hmm. And when this COVID year started, I didn't like it at all. Like, everything stopped, our show didn't happen, and I could be kind of like, oh great, I have a little bit more time to rest, because I'm also competing a lot as a competitor, and this is the first year that I didn't compete from March until now. So this is not kind of many months, but for me, like, I was competing literally every month. Damn. And I was thinking in the beginning, it's going to be nice to rest, but then after 2 months, I was just done. Like, I cannot do this anymore. I have to go back to competition.
You guys seeing her shoulders just popping as she's just talking? Like, is she getting bigger as she's just sitting here, or is it just me?
Pump. Yeah.
What's going on? You get like a pump. You get like a. Can you just settle down a little bit?
Yeah. You know, believe it or not, my shoulders was my weakness before.
What'd you do for them? They look great.
I start training them 3 times per week. And if some people say like, oh, overtraining, I personally don't believe in overtraining that much. And they start growing as when I start pushing more. So,
Chris, how brutally honest is she? I know sometimes, you know, if someone who's Russian, someone who's foreign, a lot of times they'll just give it to you really straight. Does she just every once in a while just cut you right in half?
I mean,
chop you down at the knees.
We actually are the same in that regard. I'm a first generation American as well, or I am one. So my father's Dutch, and I think there is definitely a bluntness that exists there, and that's probably why we're together. I think I get along better with her than I have with any American I've ever dated, so it works out well for us. What's funny is sometimes we'll be talking. I remember one day where it was a Halloween party. We're super fucked up, and but we were talking about like empowering women or something like that, and somebody comes up, hey, is everything okay over here? Is there a problem? We're like, no, we're actually just like debating more of the issues. And she, like, if you listen to her talk to her grandmother, it sounds like they're fighting, and it's just, yeah, they're saying,
they seem abrasive, right?
Yes, exactly. But now it works for me because I'm straight, no bullshit.
How'd you get into like show promoting? Because you said that you did one show, right? So how did that, like, were you promoting before, or?
No, well, okay.
As in like you competed?
Yeah, I've competed as a bodybuilder probably 10 times. What it was is, so I have a degree in in business, and it was actually with a concentration in ski resort management. And I had actually been promoting concerts and stuff prior to that. Then I went and I became director of events at a ski resort.
Okay.
Every kind of event, whether it was a huge mountain bike competition or Oktoberfest or concerts, whatever. And so I had this background marketing events, and then I did a couple of shows, and I remember the third one in particular. I won't say what it was, but I was insulted by how bad the production and organization was. I felt like I had worked so hard and I'd given everything I had to do my best for this show, and I felt like this promoter just showed up that day, hung up some banners, and turned on the lights. And I said, you know what? We can do this better, and this whole industry has a huge opportunity to do this better, and I know that with my background we can do this better. And that's when the first Tahoe Show happened in 2011, and people were, the audience was excited. Those other promoters were very unhappy and did everything they could for a lot of years to stop me. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because people are like, the show is so great, and you're like, well, I don't know, just put it on. Like, I have people that help, that care.
Right.
And you weren't trying to necessarily make it great. You're just trying to have a show.
Yeah.
But then it turns out to be exponentially maybe better than what people are used to, because sometimes people are used to things just not being done the way they're supposed to be done.
I always say, if you want to be successful, if you're looking for a way to be successful, find an industry where they're doing something, where they're doing it really bad, and then do it acceptable. And if you do it well, then you're going to go through the roof. I mean, that was kind of the Richard Branson concept when he did Virgin Airlines. I mean, here's an industry that sucks at their job, pretty much across the board. And then Virgin came in and they did an awesome job. If you'd ever flown with them, it was a great experience. I think they're gone now, but
they might be. Everything's kind of gone now, right?
But that's one of those areas where they found a niche. And
how'd you get into lifting originally?
Oh, that's a good question. It's kind of always been around me. My father was into it. We had Lou Ferrigno's book in the bathroom, and it was always kind of in the back.
And then nowadays you do stuff with Lou Ferrigno, right? You do promotions.
We did. Yeah, that was a full circle there. But I was in one of my business classes, they talked about the presence of a manager and how somebody who's bigger or slightly more intimidating can actually manage better because it's just their presence. And I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll put on, because I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not somebody who likes to, I used to not be somebody who likes to argue, things like that. And so it was easier just to have a presence rather than be abrasive. And so I put on 20 pounds and it went on really quick, I think in like a summer. And I was like, oh, I remember what was my goal. I want to be, I think, 180. And I was like 168 or something like that. 180 came around real fast, and I was like, oh, I'll be 190. And then I was like, now I want to be 240. And so that's what happened. And I think it worked from a business standpoint and, of course, a bodybuilding standpoint. But I did when I started. Told myself I will never be a meathead. I will never be that stereotypical bodybuilder. I still want to not waddle and not say bro all the time and things along those lines. There's it. Yep, me and Lou working out.
then you got sucked in.
Yep, exactly. Yep. That was a fun video. Bojana's in that one too.
So as far as like bodybuilding is concerned, you did a bunch of shows. You did that first Tahoe show, and we were just talking before the podcast. You promote a lot of shows now, right? Like, it sounds like it's a lot.
Correct. Yeah, we're gonna have 10 next year. Currently, one in Tahoe, 2 in Reno, 1 in Southern California, 1 in New Mexico, 1 with Dexter Jackson in Florida.
It's like crazy active.
And
it's a lot of work.
And in Russia, Moscow.
And like, in terms of kind of getting into that whole thing, because you hear a lot of people, they try to start their own first show. What kind of hoops do you have to go through for the first one?
Well, it's. I mean, I hate to say it's near impossible, but it's near impossible to be a new promoter in the NPC.
Okay.
You can try to start a show, that's not sanctioned by the NPC, but why really bother at that point? The NPC is the path to become an IFBB Pro, which is the only way to go to Mr. Olympia. So if you're an aspiring bodybuilder, unless you've set your goals really low, I'm going to win this local show with 12 people at it, then you really want to be NPC. But every NPC promoter pretty much wants more shows, and if there's an opening, it'll be a current NPC promoter who gets it, and then if there is going to be a new promoter, which the last new promoter I heard of was Austin Carr, when his father died, he inherited the show. It's almost impossible to become that. And some people maybe work their way up through the ranks. They become a chairman, or they start by expediting and judging, and they can work their way up and get a show that way. But for the most part, you can't just kind of be like, hey, I'm going to do this, and then expect to be able to get a sanction and then do it. And there's a good reason for that. I mean, yeah, there is some definitely like good old boys club, or maybe a better way to say it is they've kind of earned their way in. But to do a show right, there's a lot of details that just aren't written down. There isn't a book you can pick up. You have to live it. You have to go through it. You have to understand it. I'm still learning things, every year, whether it be rules or just new techniques to just make the show better. So yeah, it's not easy to just kind of start out of the blue and put on a show.
Yeah.
What is bodybuilding? Like, what are the judges looking for in particular when it comes to seeing these competitors? Like, what are people trying to be big, or are they trying to be lean, big and lean as possible? What are you aesthetically? What are you guys looking for?
I defer to Bojana on that because she's actually an NPC judge.
Well, every division have different rules, so it depends what we are talking about. If you're talking about bodybuilding or bikini class. So, for example, in my class, it's a figure. Judges, first of all, looking for symmetry and balance between lower body and upper body, left and right side, and then condition must be on point, and muscle size coming to the end, but it's not the least important thing. So it's a fine kind of borderline between woman physique and figure today. Before that was like a very visible, like, this is figure competitor, this is woman physique. But today, muscularity just went up so much in figure division that it's kind of like you don't know, like, this is figure or physique, or that person can compete in both divisions.
Do they still have women's bodybuilding? Because for a minute, I think it disappeared, right?
It's coming back.
Yeah, they took it out of the Olympia. It still existed. There's a group called Wings of Strength. They're also the group who just bought the Olympia. The owner, Jake Wood, loves women's bodybuilding, and he was keeping it alive. Probably if he hadn't kept it alive, it would be completely gone by now. He offered a big cash purse. I think it was $50,000 plus a Jeep. And so he had his little mini Ms. Olympia. And then he bought the Olympia. This guy's got deep pockets. Yeah.
Why do you think that happened in the first place? Like, were people maybe thinking the women weren't looking feminine enough, or just a lack of interest, or
both? I mean, I personally think, sorry, Jake, but I think women's bodybuilding isn't great for women. I think that there was a long time where women felt like if they did a curl, they would all of a sudden look masculine. And fortunately, with bikini and figure,
I see what you're saying.
We've seen that, these girls are feeling comfortable going to the gym again. Remember the cardio queens of the 90s? Right. They're afraid to lift, and they had flat asses, and nobody liked that. So, once the figure girls and bikini girls started coming out and saying, okay, I can lift, and I won't look like a man unless I take tons of steroids. And that's really, at the end of the day, what was happening was the drug abuse was getting higher and higher, and that's the only way a woman can look like that. And so it wasn't good for a woman's health, and it isn't good for, I think, women in general, because they're afraid to do healthy things.
So bodybuilding for women is fine, but following a prescription that a bodybuilder might utilize to gain as much muscle as possible would be the thing that would lead them to look more masculine, right? Like using anabolic steroids, PEDs, and so forth.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of women get bad advice from their bodybuilder boyfriend who says, take what I'm taking. And that's when they're taking androgenic steroids, and they look like
a little bit of this. Go a long way.
D-ball there, a little deck in there.
Hey, you gotta shave every other day.
Stuff, but all my laser hair removal isn't working. But you can, beat Bojana's. I'll say it like it is, man. But Bojana's number 2 in the world, and she's a girl, and it can be done, but you have to do it right. Don't have to take those shortcuts, and you have to get the right advice.
At shows, I'm curious about this because it's like when you look at the Arnold Classic, right? It seems that, I don't know, because it's the Arnold Classic, he's looking more like the people that win tend to be more symmetrical. And then in other shows, it's like the same people don't necessarily win. So how much input do certain promoters have on the type of person that wins categories in their shows? Or because they shouldn't really have input on that, right?
We don't.
Okay.
I would say that Probably when the bubble gut thing came out, that really started with Arnold, coming out there saying you guys look like Coke bottles or whatever it was. It was, I think we saw the change really happen after that. And I think we kind of mentally connect him with that aesthetic for a lot of reasons. But the same judge who judges, Steve Weinberger's the head judge at the Arnold, he's the head judge at the Olympia, and their entire crew is going to judge the exact same way. And Tyler Mannion and Sandy and so on, they are going to judge the same way, but they will recognize a need for change in the judging standards. And when Arnold came in and said, we need to bring the aesthetic back, I think everybody looked at each other and said, yeah, this is getting out of control and not good for the sport, and it's not healthy. And then you started to see it shift. And I think probably after Arnold came out and said that, then you saw it to begin to change at the Olympia, and then really saw a big change. I think Cedric won that following year, if I recall. And he's got a great taper and a great physique. And I think that's where that came from. But we have absolutely zero say in the judging or what we want to see in the show. In fact, I would say if I was to say to a judge, I want you to look for this, or I want you to keep an eye on that person or that person, I would probably lose all my shows.
Yeah. And with that being said, is there right now a shift going on, since you said the Olympia has been bought and women's bodybuilding is coming back? Is there a shift at all in kind of what's being looked for, or is it generally just staying the same?
It's a constant evolution. Now we've got 9 divisions, and each division is evolving. And when a new division, like this year, wellness was added, and wellness is it's like bikini with beard. It's like a Brazilian girl, big thick glutes and a big thick quads, but kind of a more bikini-ish top. And so when that happened, they said then the bikini glutes got a little bit smaller, and then the conditioning kind of got a little harder and figure.
It's like your ass is a little too big for this. You need to go to the next category. Exactly. You actually need to go stand over there. That's amazing.
And so it evolves. And every year we say, figure keeps getting bigger and bigger and more muscular. They look close to women's physique right now. And each year they say, okay, we're going to pull it back. But then in practice, it's not really getting pulled back. I think bikini, I would say for the first time, it is getting pulled back, where bikini was getting harder. And the Tahoe Show is a good example of that, where Ashley Kaltwasser, who's won the Olympia 3 times, got second place at the Tahoe Show because she was a little too hard. So we are seeing them trying to consciously correct that. And our head judge at the Tahoe Show is one of the main judges for the Olympia. So he's one of the people who are setting the standard. So they try like hell to have a standard and adjust as needed. It's sometimes hard when you have hundreds of shows each year, and you've got some judging panels who never judge anything except their 1 or 2 shows each year.
This is I find this so fascinating, because you hear people say certain things and then they'll go back against what they just said previously. Like, I've heard women for years say, I don't really like a guy to be too big. And then they're like, oh my God, look at The Rock. And they freak out. And you're like, The Rock is 6'5". He's like 270. And he has hardly any body fat on. Do you understand how goddamn big The Rock is? They don't know, and I think a lot of times that's what's happening in these shows, is that there's some people that can pull it off and they can have a ton of muscle on them and they could be shredded and they can look amazing. And then other people, maybe it's too far away from what they were naturally, and they're starting to kind of look awkward, different, right? And maybe it's just not as attractive, and so something throws it off, and you're not sure what it is, but you know that it just doesn't look aesthetically it's hard to say, right? I mean, I just find it fascinating. We can all agree on certain things look pretty good, or we can agree, if we saw a bunch of different models, we might gravitate towards one in particular where we're like, yeah, that one's kind of the cutest one or the nicest looking one out of those. A flower, people can agree, that flower looks the nicest, right? But we don't know why. So it's really a really interesting thing to examine and to look at. You're
almost there. The reason you feel those is the release of serotonin, right? Something beautiful comes up, this warm red flower, and you feel serotonin. So 20 girls walk across the stage. They'll all look exactly the same, but 1 or 2 made that serotonin spike. I like that one. That's going to be your first
And maybe
place.
something from your own history, or who the hell knows where.
It could be a number of things. You know, it could be their symmetry. It could be something from their past. It could be a color. I mean, tell them what.
Could be the way they're moving, like the way they're walking. They could be walking with more confidence.
What Tamara says when she is doing her presentation.
I'm not going to say that.
Oh, I'm so curious.
We have a friend. She's a bikini pro, retired. How do I say this?
Verbatim.
Make the judge fuck you. Yeah. So you go out there and you sell that to them, and she goes, well, what if it's a girl? She wants it too. and there's some truth to that. You go out there and you make them attracted to you. You know, maybe that's on the extreme end, but what is it that's going to get them to spike that serotonin, especially in a division like bikini where they all look awesome. You know, so what is it going to do that makes you stand out? It's going to be something in that presentation, something in your eyes, something just that makes you stand out. Now on the other end, then there's like, we were talking about bodybuilders, kind of go back to that. On the amateur world, you know, where you and I would be competing, the thing for people to concentrate on is really conditioning first. We all have a little bit of size.
Get as lean as you can.
Exactly. You know, always if
follow through on that damn diet.
Yeah. And if I'm out there at 215 and you're out there at 200 and you're more conditioned than me, my size isn't going to help me win. You won because you're more conditioned. That's what amateurs need to remember. I made that mistake. I'm sure, you know, as a bodybuilder, we all want to be bigger. You know, that's your number one goal. But really, now you want to be leaner, especially on that amateur level.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't going to even really notice if it's 10, 15. I mean, a trained eye will notice, obviously, but 10, 15 pounds. But if it's like 30 or 40, maybe you are a little bit better off being bigger. But
yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I see a lot of people making that mistake, and they're worried that they're going to be small. Yeah. But it's like, well, maybe that's just where you're at for now. And then maybe you need to do some work in the off season so you don't feel small next time you get on the stage.
Oh, exactly. And the illusion that it creates when you're lean, you look bigger. You know, she's on stage, can I say it, like 119 pounds. But if you look at her stage pictures, she looks like she could do women's physique. She looks jacked, and she's probably 20 or 30 pounds lighter than most of the girls on stage. It's because of her conditioning and because of this massive taper that she has between her lats and her midsection.
Do you think like because you know, you guys were just talking about how women's physique and figure, it's getting kind of close, right? Now with the introduction of classic physique, right, it seems like it's like men's physique and classic physique. Some of the guys can go either or, and actually are, and are doing well in both. All of these different categories, do you think that maybe some should just be melded together? And
I think those three divisions are good as different. I think the problem that's happening with men's physique is that they should have a weight cap the way classic physique has. Classic physique, for me, example, if I'm between 5'10 and 5'11, I have to weigh, I think, 207. But I've heard men's physique guys, I go, hey, how come you don't do classic physique? I'm too heavy. Like, that's a problem when the men's physique guy is too heavy to do classic. The whole point was you're the smaller entry level. Classic is the guys, I don't want to be 300 pounds, but I want to be ripped and aesthetic, and I want to look like Arnold. I want to look like Sergio. And then bodybuilders are the huge guys. But when you can switch, or they have switched, that's a problem. And I think that's when, you know, I would say to the NPC and IFBB need to kind of look at that. And I know they have in the past about looking at weight limits. And then, you know, the question is, well, then they'll just stop training legs. You know, here's a men's physique guy. He's going to stop training legs so he can put more size in the top. Yeah. Well, then, okay, then we're going to judge calves. You know, then you do something to make sure that has to be corrected, and you still keep that weight lower. And remember, men's physique and bikini were invented to be an entry level. And that's when our industry tripled in size. You know, our shows went from 100 to 300 because now, hey, I don't want to be 300 pounds. I don't, you know, yeah, she doesn't want to look like a women's bodybuilder, but they still want to show off our work. And that was that opportunity. And when men's physique and bikini start to get too high level and they're no longer entry level, we hurt ourselves.
I agree. I think a lot of guys that are in the gym training some back and training some triceps and flexing in the mirror a little bit are like, yeah, I could I could maybe hop on one of those shows one day. I could maybe get up there and I could get a little bit leaner and do it. But then you see like a Jay Cutler or someone like that, or some of these great Olympians of past, and you're like, there's just, that's not me. I don't know I can't even figure out how to be anywhere near as much of a mutant as those guys. Right. So I think it is very inviting. And we've seen the same thing in powerlifting with like bench only competitions, you know, and that happened kind of like in the mid 80s. And it changed powerlifting forever because you had a lot of great lifters that would come in and say, yeah, I bench all the time. I'll hop in on some of these. And then they end up, you know, being full meat powerlifters eventually because they're like, oh yeah, I can squat and deadlift and stuff. And that's where I started as a kid because I didn't know how to squat. You know, squatting was just difficult for me, and so it took me years to kind of figure that out. So I kind of started in that category of having kind of an entry level type of thing set up for me.
Yeah, I think that makes it more inclusive, and that helps our sport to grow. And we have to remember that, you know, the higher level athletes, they should be that rule and that rule and that rule. Well, that kind of makes it so you're not going to have any more athletes behind you to come into your sport.
Yeah, would you guys say, like, especially with the female athlete in mind, that like I guess bodybuilding in general, is it healthy for a female? Just like maybe they're following Bojana, maybe they're following someone like Dana Lynn Bailey or even Cass Martin, and they're like kind of striving for that, but maybe not necessarily going to hop on stage. Would you say that bodybuilding is probably one of the better options instead of like maybe CrossFit or even powerlifting?
I would say probably yes. Maybe some people not going to agree with me, but I think it's kind of safer that bodybuilders train smart, so injuries are kind of like, they're not happening like in powerlifting that much. Yeah, so I think it's just safer, and in a long term can be better option for somebody who don't want to compete, who just want to do that for fun and have some activity and for health.
Yeah, and probably just like overall education, right? Because it just seems like nutrition is just gone over like crazy with bodybuilding. And Nsima, can you point your microphone towards you? Yeah, it was killing me. Sorry. There you go.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, it's in my opinion, I think just the overall education with nutrition, I think is like the biggest benefit when it comes to bodybuilding.
Yep. I would agree.
Yeah.
I think a big difference too is somebody like somebody shifting gears and making the commitment to like actually bodybuild, you know, to you see a lot of men and women, you know, flexing on Instagram and stuff, but there's a huge difference when you're actually really consciously trying to work on it every single day, and you're working on your cardio, and you're tracking your food, and you're really specifically paying attention. I think specifically a lot of females could really benefit a lot from it, because I think a lot of them try to diet. A lot of them still maybe just aren't getting the nutrients that they need because they're not eating enough because they want to be smaller. They're not really working on trying to get more jacked or get bigger. And I like that about bodybuilding. I think that part of it can be really healthy. Obviously, you can run into some pitfalls with the dieting and too much not eating enough and too much cardio, just like you could with anything else. But I think in general, I think bodybuilding is awesome. And I think you can do it forever. I think you could do it until you're 90 years old, because powerlifting, you could do it for a long time, but if you're trying to lift heavy weight, you're going to get hurt, and you're not going to be able to do it very well for that long, probably. And then you might run into issues of range of motion. But bodybuilding, even if you ran into range of motion issues, you could still use machines. There's still a lot of other movements and exercises that you can do. What do you guys think in terms of like, what can someone do that's listening to this right now to kind of make that change where they just start to kind of recognize that they really just need to kind of chop down their body fat in some way? They have to kind of attack it, and they have to kind of live a more of a lifestyle to elicit the results they're looking for. Because I know that people want to get in shape. They have this idea in their head, but there's a couple things off. What do you guys think might be a couple things that are like hindering people from just getting in just a little bit better shape every time, bikini season comes around?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions as to what is healthy eating, and especially women are doing, men too, everybody, they're doing the wrong things. They're saying, okay, I'm going to eat especially as a bodybuilder, no carbs. And then, well, now you're flat, and that's not working for you. I know you like to do no carbs, but that's a different.
No, I understand. And this just goes back to what Jay Cutler said on the show, which is, don't be fancy, just be consistent.
Yeah.
And so the no carb thing, or whatever it is, fasting, or whatever it is you're trying to do, all those things can work. Just be consistent with it, and have whatever it is you're doing, just have a plan with it.
I think that's it. And once you establish that rhythm, I mean, here I haven't competed since 2016, but I had my egg whites and oatmeal this morning, just like I do every other day. And I have 2 meals that you saw. I brought my 6-pack bag with me, and that's we've reprogrammed ourselves. And whether you're going to compete or not, it's healthy habits that you can keep for the rest of your life, and you stay in good shape and you look good, year round. But it's learning those really basic things. It's complex carbohydrates and lean protein. You do that every 3 hours. It's that simple. If you can handle that, then you're going to be in shape eventually. And the other thing is just don't eat more than you burn. Unless you want to gain, then you eat a little bit more, but do it in protein and not in fat and carbs.
That is said like way too simply.
Right. Right. It all comes down to that. And
do you need to be hungry? Do you need to be hungry to be in shape, but not stage ready?
No. So
that's probably a misconception. A lot of people are living under. They probably feel they need to be fucking hungry every day, like starving.
It doesn't have to be, fish and rice every meal. For example, I eat a chicken thigh and rice every meal, and that little bit of fat keeps me full, and I'm good that way.
If you're going to step on stage, you would swap it out with turkey or chicken breast or something.
And I wouldn't even swap. You wouldn't swap it 12 weeks out. You would work into it, because if you do it all 12 weeks out, where are you going to go at 6 weeks when you hit that plateau? You got to slowly ramp up your cardio, slowly ramp down your fats, slowly ramp down your calories. But at the same time with her, I get her at 4 to 6 weeks out where she's super shredded. Then I start ramping up her protein. So I'm increasing her calories as she gets to the show. She continues to get leaner, and she puts on mass. And typically she'll put on 10 pounds of mass in a prep. So while everybody's trying to get the fat off their ass, she's putting on 10 pounds of lean mass because of the way the diet is set up.
Do you have to do cardio?
Depends on the prep. Is that beginning or the end of the prep? But I like to do cardio. So usually he needs to stop me at some point, kind of like, easy, like you cannot do now 2 hours of cardio. Like
it hard?
We have to leave that for the end.
Maybe impede muscle mass for you personally, or does it disrupt that a little bit?
Well, it's not working at the end. When we need the most, it's going to stop working, actually. Body's going to adapt already, and we're not going to have same effects like if it just was ramping up to the show. But we, as he mentioned, do opposite things. When a lot of people having bulking season and then gaining weight and then shredding that weight to the show, we're doing opposite. We're starting the prep from I'm probably the lightest at the beginning of the prep. Like for this Arnold prep, he measured my weight in January, because I don't like to see my weight. I hate that, because I had that problem in the past. When I see the scale go up, I think that I'm fat, and then I stop eating. So I just told him, like, you check my weight. I don't need to know the number. I don't want to know the number. So he was looking in January. It was January 1st, right? And he said, like, oh my God, you're like 15 pounds lighter than your stage weight.
Damn.
2 or 3 months ago. That was October, right? So from January to March 3rd, we put like 15 pounds of lean mass. I don't know how is that possible. I even don't have explanation. I just was consistent with my food that I wasn't in my off season. I was just eating when I'm hungry and probably was in caloric deficit. So I lose all fat and some muscle as well. Yeah. And then we start eating on time and putting everything on like strict schedule, training and cardio and sleep and recovery. And I was 15 pounds heavier. And from January to March, I wasn't at no one point like less lean or fat, to say fat. I was just kind of leaner and leaner towards the March. So body just react. I just figured out that my body reacts the best on this way, when I start my prep lean and lighter and just growing to the show. Because otherwise, if I'm torturing my body to lose that fat that I gain in off season, I end up tired on stage and probably look even worse than my last time or the same. It wouldn't be any improvement there.
I think that's that satellite cell thing, like people that get in accidents and they used to be pretty big and they atrophy, but then once they're able to start working out again, that muscle can, like I've heard of guys, I think there's this guy, this C.W. Wilson or whatever on Instagram, he had a client that had an accident, he lost 80 pounds. Okay. And then after like he was able to start training again, it took him 4 months to gain 70 of those pounds back. Wow. Because he had that muscle before. Yeah. So it just, that shit just comes back.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Comes back and you know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When we guys started, I'm sure you're the same way. We're just eating as much as we could, just trying to, I would pour oil in my shakes, I got 6,000 calories a day. Pouring oil and ice cream in your shakes with your protein powder, like just doing whatever stupid thing we could do. Had I just eaten half as much and ate lean protein and complex carbs, I would have been stronger and leaner and all those good things. Probably got more chicks.
I want to know about this. And I'm curious, you're a pro, right, Bojana?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you notice that like pros compete every year and they compete multiple times a year and they have this short off season, how is it that when do they have time to really make progress? Because I'm wondering, like, don't you need a longer extended off season, some people, to really be able to put on good muscle? Or can you just keep competing over and over and actually make improvement?
What I did in the past was just keep competing and making improvement. For me, that works the best.
Mm-hmm. When she was putting on the most mass during her prep, that's when she would improve the most. And I would say, like most of us, when your prep is good, that's when you're going to add the most lean mass. Now, the lean mass is the key. If you're just adding weight, I put on 40 pounds in my off season. And guess what? When I dieted down, I weighed the exact same as I did when I started. So it actually wasn't progress. And it's a misconception that a lot of us, when we're new, have. We just need to put on mass, and when we get it off, there'll hopefully be some meat left behind, but really there isn't. You've got to just add the lean mass. So you're doing it. You're constantly rebounding and growing and rebounding and growing, and then your off season, even in 3 months, you can put on, I don't know, depending on where you are, a decent amount of lean mass. And then I would say a lot of it is shaping, and that's something you can always do. So say Danny Hesser, he's a good friend of mine, so I know him pretty well, and he's looked awesome for like the last 30 years. Under 5% body fat forever. Always, and what's he doing at that point? He's not trying to add more weight. He's trying to sculpt. He's looking, I want a little more peak on this left bicep, and so that's the improvement. And you can do that anytime. You look at your legs, this one's a little different than that one, so I'm going to focus on one leg, whatever's, and that's going to be more the improvement once you're at that level, is not adding the weight, but now you're sculpting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you see a weak point and maybe you try to address it as specifically as possible. Like, let's say that your legs are a weak point. Well, maybe Monday is kind of the start of your week, and so you're like, all right, every Monday is when I'm going to do legs because I'm the freshest. I usually take off on Sunday, and then post workout I'll make sure I have maybe a little extra carbs or whatever it is that you think you need to grow, or maybe you train legs twice that day, or whatever the heck it is. But I think there's what I like about bodybuilding is just the specifics of it, where somebody just all of a sudden, they sign up for a show, and you see them week by week, and they just keep getting leaner and leaner and leaner. And they're like, how did they do that? Because when I've seen them in previous weeks, they look the same every week. But now they're hunting down this mission. They're on a mission. And I think it's really cool how you can just flip a switch like that and just be off to the races with, building up your arms or building up your legs or sculpting the body the way that you want it to.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah.
How about this? I'm curious about this, especially since you'll sometimes see pictures of individuals on stage, and you see this sometimes in bikini, women getting implants and men getting implants. Is that something that judges notice? Because sometimes it's not obvious. And so how do people look at that within the industry?
Oh, you'll get marked down. Like gluten, any implant besides your tits, basically, you get marked down. And you can even get marked down if your tits are too big because it's throwing off your balance. Sandy Williamson is a head judge in the country or in the world for women. She has said time and time again, you don't need implants to win a show, meaning breast implants to win a show. It's not necessary at all. There's a lot of ways. You just need to create balance. Now, when it comes to glute implants are the popular ones now. And I remember this girl. She actually won the Tahoe Show one year, and she just couldn't place. It was when glute implants were like nobody had seen them before. It was like a long time. I won't say the year. I'll give away who she is. But and then people started to be like, wait, something's not quite right here. And then she never got first again. And she goes, well, Sandy doesn't hate me. I'm like, no, you have a fake ass. And
how'd they find out?
You can tell the ass, you can see it's fake, and sometimes there's a scar, you can see, or a tattoo over a scar. But you can tell when muscles that well. I mean, I'm sure you can see like the top of her ass is too high. It's too pointy. Yes. It's not right. Or her legs are sticks, but her ass is huge. Like you can't get an ass that big and have little stick legs. They're gonna balance out at least somewhat. So when they see that, they get marked down. I mean, and I would say they'll never get first unless they're really DL implants, that you can't really tell. For the most part, you'll see them, push down to 5th, 6th, or worse. So definitely not something you can do. If you can grow it, you should grow it, but with work, not by going to the doctor. Yeah.
Chris, how do you help people with their diet? I know that you were mentioning that you have some information on your website and stuff like that, but where do you start somebody from like a caloric perspective? How do you come to these numbers?
Okay, that's a good question, and I do lay out I use formulas, and I am able to using formulas get their exact caloric requirements. So you take your BMR or your lean body mass, multiply it by 11, and that gets your starting calories. Then you add in the calories you burn throughout your day from your daily routine. If you work at a desk, it's 20%, and if you're out there delivering packages for UPS, it's going to be 50-60% of your base calories. And that base metabolic rate is, as you probably know, but I'll say for the audience, it's the calories you would burn if you just lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, and that's where you start. And then you add in your daily activity calories, and then you add in your training calories, and that is the calories you need to maintain your body weight. Now from there, then you figure out your goals. If my goal is to gain, you have to remember that 1 pound is made up of 3,500 calories, and so I would say add 500 calories to that caloric requirement that we just figured out, and 500 calories a day, and eventually you get a pound a week, a pound every 6 days, if that math holds up. And I found that doing that, it actually works perfectly. And you can do it the opposite way too. If your calories burned per day is 3,000 and you need to lose 4 pounds, that means you need to lose 4 times 3,500. That's 14,000 calories. Divide 14,000 calories by the time span you have. So if it's 10 weeks, you need to have a deficit of 1,400 calories a week, right? Follow that? Mm-hmm. And then you will end up at the end of that time period at your goal. And when you use those formulas, it's damn near perfect. It's what I've always used for her. When I used to prep people, I used it. And an interesting story, I consulted with Charles Glass, and I said, hey, will you look at my diet? And I pulled out my laptop and I showed him this, and he's like, will you send this to me? Yeah. And he sees how it all works. I sent it to him, and I saw him a few months later. He's like, I had a girl for years, I could not get her to lose weight. I used your program, and I finally got her to be where I wanted her to be. So using those formulas as your starting point is going to set you far, far ahead. And I have this all on centerpodium.com, my shameless plug, but we have a membership side that what I saw was, and you've seen it too, a lot of bad coaches. A lot of people, I'm nationally qualified, so I'm your coach now. No, you're not really. You beat 2 people in a local show. Like, cool, you're nationally qualified, but you shouldn't be a coach, and you're doing people a disservice. And so I saw that happening, and I also saw people saying, I can't compete because I can't afford a coach. So I took everything, literally her whole prep plan, and I applied it for whatever your goals are, and walked and put it all on my website for $10 a month. So you're not paying $300 or $400 a month.
That's great.
And and they have everything and all the things like I wish I knew, probably the things you wish you knew when you first started competing. You know, like I showed up with a Walmart plastic bag with my shit in it. You know, like bring a gym bag. You know, and you want to bring a razor because you probably miss a spot. Like all these little things, or how do I become a pro? You know, what's a national qualifier? What's the difference between the NPC and the IFBB and the IFBB International and other federations? Why would I want to be in the NPC and so on? So it answers a lot of these questions that really isn't found anywhere else. And a lot of it's actually free. Yeah, if you click there, go to resources, slide down.
I like what you were saying about the calories, because I like that you kept saying over and over again that it's just a starting point, because then you might have to tweak something, right? Like so you go back and forth with someone says, hey, I've been doing it for 2 weeks, I didn't lose any weight, and then maybe they're making an error on their end, or maybe there's just something you're not accounting for, but then you can make an adjustment, right?
Yeah, and it sucks to be working your ass off but doing the wrong thing, and I see a lot of that. People are putting out all this energy, but they have the wrong instructions. And this really gets you, solid numbers, so you have the right instructions, so you're not wasting your time. And then a lot of this, the contest prep guide here on my site, and a lot of it's free, like the basic NPC info to get you started, the thing that I think every competitor needs to know, it's all on there. And then when I get into my formulas and stuff, then you got to pay $10.
What have you found in terms of utilizing these calories versus like allowing people to eat or having people eat sort of whatever they want and still fitting it into that calorie equation? Does that still work to some extent, or?
I think it can work in, for bikini and on the amateur side, that kind of, what do they call, flexible dieting. The trouble with that is if foods are chemicals and they do different things to your body every day with every meal. For example, cabbage and broccoli have anti-estrogen in them, and so you can, if I put that in your diet, that means you may have some fat in your thigh that I want you to get rid of, and I'm going to get rid of it with cabbage. And if you decided, I'm going to switch that to cucumbers, well, now I don't have those anti-estrogen
That's
properties.
the kind of shit I find super interesting, because when I asked Hani Rambod a couple times, I was like, hey, can I do? He's like, no. And I was like, hey, what? And it's like, no. He's like, shut the fuck up. Just goddamn do what I said. I was like, all right, just relax, But I was trying to ask if I could interchange. I'm like, I don't really like that so much. He's like, I don't care what you like. He's like, just follow the program.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, got it.
I agree with him on that one. Yeah, every food does. And the other thing is you need to learn how your body reacts to different food. There's a girl, she won the Tahoe Show a couple years ago, and she did Sacramento, and she got 5th. And I looked at her and I said, you had sweet potatoes with skin on it, didn't you? She's like, yeah. She's like, how could you tell? I could see them. They're in your stomach. And she's like, every food reacts differently.
Maybe
So
just bloated her a little bit.
Yeah,
Fiber.
you could tell she had to poop, and that fiber was holding her in her lower stomach, and I could see it. And I know that commonly in peak week, people load with sweet potatoes, and I know the skin will do that. And so I was able to call it, and I felt bad she fired her coach. But these are the things. And so to know that, hey, sweet potatoes may work great for me, might make you bloated, might make you retain water. So I need to know. I see your progress pictures, or Hani sees your progress pictures, and you look a little watery this week.
That's what he did. He switched my sweet potato with a red potato. He's like, oh, that made the biggest difference. I was like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. So, flexible dieting can work in the first part of a prep, or it can work, amateur bikini. But if you're trying to win, if you're trying to be perfect, everything needs to be perfect.
Or if you're not competing and you just want to stay fit and healthy, you throw in a Pop-Tart here and there, or some frozen yogurt. It's not going to break the bank, right?
Right, exactly. I know we cheat a lot. We cheat. I mean, and you should see this girl cheat. She'll get a.
Now we're getting into the good stuff.
Yeah, this is. We kind of like, the kind of rule is like, if you didn't fuck up all week, then you get the reward. And cheating to me is like, you missed a meal, you ate a meal too late, you didn't eat the right food. So cheating isn't just eating those extra cookies; it is making sure you're on point. So you reward yourself by having a big old cheat meal. Now this girl put away a half gallon of ice cream, a huge box of cookies, and usually a half a cake in one sitting. I don't know how.
I love it.
Yep. But I think it kicks up her metabolism. It keeps her her metabolism. From
And you haven't married her yet because of.
My canned answers is I already put on 9 shows a year, and each one has 200 brides.
What other little stuff like that do you like? The sweet potato skin thing, right? What other things like that do people just like not think about? Because I never thought about the anti-estrogen effects of cabbage and broccoli.
Yeah. Let's see. I kind of go through my head. A lot of it has to do with food allergies and how your body's going to react. Yeah, and then a lot in peak week. This is a good one. Is what's going to keep your body full, and we learned this. It works differently with other people. If a lot of people can spill over with too many carbs, you've heard that, and one of the ways to deal with that is by using more of a combination or even more fats, like from avocado. I see avocado keeps people really full. And so if you're prone to spilling over, that avocado will help to keep the muscles full. And we do that now in our peak week. There's that's actually a good one, is a big spike of donuts will increase your insulin. And we all know there's a lot of bodybuilders who take insulin to get bigger. And so you can use food to spike your insulin. I remember one time I walked in, I looked at donuts and my body reacted. I started to sweat just looking at them. And so I knew my blood sugar was changing just from seeing them. My body was preparing.
Yeah, smelling them, right?
Yeah. And I used to do that before a show. Most bodybuilders would, many bodybuilders high end will take insulin before a show to be full. But you can do that with junk food, but the problem with junk food is you can also spill over
calories.
You can have too much of that, and it's not necessarily controllable. We talked about our precise measurement of calories earlier. I'm going to go to Dunkin' Donuts. Oh wait, there's no Dunkin' Donuts. I'm going to go to Krispy Kreme. I don't know how many calories in that. It would be between a Bavarian cream and a sprinkle. Like now you're not being as precise, and that's when it comes back to being more precise. But using those foods and learning what food is going to make you feel the most full. And donuts was one of those tricks. I actually did turn a few people pro by having them have donuts the night before.
So what's the process of becoming a pro? Because is it different for every single category? I know you have to do a certain amount of shows, and then you have to do a specific qualifier. I don't know.
So you have a NPC national qualifier, and you have to place top 2 in a open division. So not masters, not novice. It has to be an open division to become nationally qualified. Once you become nationally qualified, you're now eligible to compete in a pro qualifier. A pro qualifier, and I'm going to start with the United States and then I'll go overseas. But in the United States, pro qualifier, it varies on how many pro cards are awarded based on the size of the show. Nationals in Miami, it's the top 2 will all receive their pro cards. So back up, place top 2 in an open show. Now you're qualified. You go to nationals, place top 2, get your pro card. There are overseas, we don't have things like nationals. We have NPC Worldwide Pro Qualifiers. That's what our show in Russia is, where our overall winner will earn pro status. And that's in the midst of evolution, because back up, the IFBB Pro League and NPC split from the IFBB International. They're now 2 different unrelated federations. So these IFBB International athletes can no longer go to the Olympia. They can no longer compete at a pro show. So our organization want to give them an opportunity. So we created these NPC Worldwide Pro Qualifiers, where all you have to do is win the overall. There isn't a qualification series yet, so that we could help populate the pros more worldwide. And in the future, there will be a qualification. And I think in England, in the UK, they are starting to qualify because there's enough shows now to justify it. But in Russia, where there's only one, my show, you can't have a qualification series.
Gotcha. Cool. And do pros have to compete every few years? Is there a mandatory amount of competitions a pro needs to do every 2 years, 3 years, etc.?
No, I don't think so. That is any requirement now.
Okay.
No. But usually, top competitors, when they start placing top 5 at the Arnold and Olympia, you're going to see them only at that shows. The competitors who are still chasing and need to qualify for the Olympia, you see them all around year-long competing. But I think that system that if you're placing top 5 at the Olympia, you automatically qualify for the next year is just not good for this sport, because you don't see those people anymore at the shows. And some people would like to see and come to come and see Jay Cutler, for example, when he used to compete, but they know he's going to be at the Olympia or Arnold, and that's it. He's not going to other shows. And that's, I think, for fans is not kind of good thing. And also for athletes, I feel like athletes should always be active and fighting for that spot. Like in every other sport, like if you want to requalify for the Olympics, you have to go through qualification system again and again. Doesn't matter if you already have a gold medal from Olympic Games. So I think that it would be nice to change maybe slightly, the rules slightly change, so we have like that requirement. At least maybe a requirement how many shows we have to do per year, so people can see us, and I think that keeps you improving.
And to help understand, to go to the Olympia, you have to either win a show or have, depending on the division, the top 3 most points of everybody in your division. And then if you win the Olympia, you're automatically qualified for life. Top 5 are automatically qualified. So as top 5 for the next year.
Okay.
Only the first place is qualified for life. So Ronnie Coleman could theoretically compete at the Olympia next year. And as Bojana said, what happens is it pulls the best athletes out of circulation. And then a good example, the Tahoe Show. We had amateur bikini on Saturday. We had pro bikini on Sunday. Pro bikini sold 8 times more tickets. Amateur bikini sold 8 times more tickets than pro bikini. So what happens is you don't create the following. People watch football because they want to watch their athlete, they want to watch their team, and they play over and over and over again as they fight for the Super Bowl. In bodybuilding, we already know he's going to win. He's going to the Super Bowl. What's the excitement there? So, as Bojana said, you shouldn't get that automatic qualification, in my opinion. I'm not Jim Mannion. I'm not going to speak for him or argue with him. But I would like to see more of the top level pros out there. And I was impressed this year. We had Ashley Caldwasser, who I mentioned earlier. She won the Olympia 3 times. She did a ton of shows this year. And that is a smart thing for any pro to do. We know that pros don't make a lot of money. There's the sponsorships dried up, and we're all our own media companies with our own Instagrams. And to keep yourself relevant, to make money, to make sponsorship, you gotta be out there competing. And even though she's qualified, she's won 22 shows. She doesn't need to do that, but she's out there keeping herself relevant. She's growing her following. She's growing her fan base. And I'd like to see every athlete do that. It's good for the sport. It's good for the federation, and it's good for the athlete.
Is that the girl who gets a lot of flack? Doesn't she get a lot of flack on social media? I don't follow a lot of this stuff that frequently, but that's just some of the stuff I was hearing.
Yeah, recently there was a group of people, or a team, I guess, who
like she's taking spots away from other people.
Let somebody else win. Yeah,
I was like, well, they should just try to beat her. Just don't let her beat you.
Exactly. That's not how you should win a show. Is hope the best person doesn't show up. That's actually the opposite of. And she's actually smart, because it is strategy. And the more shows she wins, that means less people are going to be on the Olympia stage against her. If I was her, I'd go out and crush every freaking show I could, so there's 7 of us on that freaking stage instead of 30. And it's a great strategy.
Am I mistaken? Did she win Olympia or no?
Ashley's won it 3 times.
She's won. Damn.
Yep.
Can you pull her up?
Yeah, what was her name?
Ashley Caldwasser.
Okay.
Wasser.
I did see some stuff about it, but yeah, my thought is just like yours. But like, let's say she's like, okay, I'll let you win this one. You're gonna lose at the next stage. So what's the point? Like, you, again, participation trophy to say you went to the Olympia,
right?
Like, come on now.
And then now you've got another person on stage with you at the Olympia. One more competition. It's good to eliminate them if you can.
Yeah. What was her name again? Sorry.
Ashley Caldwasser. Kaltwasser.
Should also nickname her Dream Killer, because that's what she's doing.
Yeah, crushing.
Hey, that's and that's exactly what Ronnie did for 8 years. Ronnie Coleman. Chris Cormier is a friend of mine, and I was looking at him like, man, you just had the worst timing. Anybody who was up against Chris Cormier, up against Ronnie Coleman, didn't have a chance.
I'm just pulling random stuff on her Instagram.
Oh yeah, she's a sweetheart too. She's an awesome person. She's just a real, what I call it, the champion mindset. There she is at the Tahoe Show.
Whoa.
That's I'm like, whoa.
That separation.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
Which one's
see the outdoor 2 pictures?
This one right here?
All those are. That's the Tahoe Show. And she got second at the Tahoe Show because she's, as you see, she was a little too muscular, a little too hard for that that judging panel.
Dang, whoever must have beat her must be like on cloud 9.
She was, I think she was pretty happy. But the Tahoe Show had people called it a mini Olympia with the talent that was out there. We'd all the top girls,
amazing competitors there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
See, she's pretty. I keep trying to get her to do fitness, but she won't have it.
Backwards.
I was like, did she just play that backwards, or is she really doing that?
It looked like it would. It looked like it would hurt.
I think she.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's crazy.
So fitness is another category?
Correct.
So what's the difference between like fitness and then wellness that you just mentioned?
So fitness, they have a routine. So that's where there's for pros, there's 2 portions of judging. 1/3 of the score is the presentation. What are they called? The physique. The physique round, and that's where they basically look like figure. Mm-hmm. And then in the evening they do their routine, and that's their gymnastics routine, of performance to music. And that's what separates them. And then wellness, as you mentioned, it's more like bikini with bigger butts.
Okay. Now I want to backtrack a little bit, and because when you were talking about the nutrition aspect of things, and you were talking about tracking calories, one thing that I've noticed within a lot of that is that some individuals still take the old school route. And I think Mark, like, Hani knew the calories he was giving you, but didn't he just tell you this is what you should eat? Like, he just gave you a meal plan, or did he tell you the calories in the food too?
Yeah, he pretty much just gave me like a meal plan.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean the calories were by default because he gave me a meal plan. Yeah, he gave me a meal plan. It had 5-6 meals on it or whatever every day.
Okay, and I know that Hani knew the calories that he was giving Mark for sure, but there are a lot of people that just literally give a template meal plan out to people on prep. How do you feel about people working with individuals in that fashion?
Oh, there is. The only way that works is, for one, you need to know the measurements. You can't just say eat a steak, because he's going to eat a 16-ounce steak and she's going to eat a 24-ounce steak is actually the reality of that. So they're kind of like, all right, let's see if this works, or let's see how this works. And then they're like, all right, let's tweak this now and see what happens then. And then let's see what happens then. And now we've just spent the last 8 weeks trying to figure out if this meal plan is working for you.
Yeah.
When you actually know the calories on day 1, it's going to start working on day 1. There's still going to be tweaking, but a whole lot less.
Yeah.
And you also want to talk to this person and get as much information from them as possible. What have you done in the past? What are your allergies? Pay attention, make any notes. I ate, like, back to the sweet potatoes. They made me feel bloated, or this made me get a rash. You want to know what each food is doing, and you want that information as early as you can and not figure it out when you're 2/3 of the way into your prep. So yeah, I would definitely disagree with that. Here's your template. Have at it. Let's see what happens. No, you want to start with some science.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for me, we didn't have a lot of time was one big part of it, and the other thing was because I came from a background of not really eating much carbs. He was like, I don't know what the hell's going to happen. So my carbs were pretty moderate the whole time, and as we went forward and as I got leaner, it was pretty obvious that I could handle the carbs maybe better than he expected. So it was interesting because it was like 8 weeks, kind of shotgun approach. He was like, you need to do a fucking ton of cardio. You're a former fat kid, and we need to like figure this out and just get you as lean as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's what I would have done. He understood your background with the carbs, and I'm not saying I'm nowhere close to Hani. Not even going to try to compare myself to that experience that he has. But I would agree with everything you've told me. He said he's done so far, but to know, I would be careful with those carbs. I would slowly work them in to see what would happen.
Yeah, and he had me measure stuff, and he was basically just saying, like, go steak, chicken, fish, and just rotate them around, and egg whites and oatmeal. I mean, it wasn't too different than what you see just standard bodybuilding. I mean, what you mentioned earlier, lean meats.
It's pretty simple.
And complex carbohydrates. I mean, I think a good rule for people, to follow is, like, if you're... I don't think that I never think that carbohydrates are a problem. I think the problem sometimes can be is that carbohydrates usually accompany a lot of fat. And when we start mixing carbs and fat together, it just gets to be really hard to stop yourself from eating it. So carbs and fat together aren't necessarily an evil thing either. It's just that it's you take some rice and you throw some butter on it or something like that, or you take a meal and you throw some cheese on it and you add some fat to it. It just makes it that much easier to eat.
Yeah.
And that's where we start to run into some problem. You throw some oil on some hash browns or something like that, and they're just 10 times more delicious.
Oh yeah. And the science behind that is what happens. Your blood sugar, your insulin levels spike when you have carbohydrates, and what's your insulin do? It delivers nutrients to the cell. So if the nutrients that are present is fat, you're literally driving fat right into the cell with those carbohydrates. Now, if you're eating lean carbs and protein, you just bring your insulin up a little bit, and you're gonna drive protein into that cell.
Right.
What about some of those like hacks and stuff as far as like net carbs and that sort of thing? That's just definitely not for somebody that's actually going to step on stage.
No, you want to keep it simple. Those things are, some of the things you're talking about,
like zero,
when you're like
calorie
subtracting the
sweeteners.
fiber and and that kind of thing. Now you just want to keep it clean, and it doesn't really work. And then there are the sweeteners there are sweeteners you can use, and we like stevia and monk fruit. Those are the ones that we lean towards. Less chemicals.
Sugar alcohols tend to kill your stomach too.
Oh, you want to start to
rough.
bloat, and have to
Because
change your underwear a couple times a day, that kind of thing.
They say about sugar alcohols that body is confused because they're not sugar and not alcohol. The body doesn't know how to process, so they sit in your stomach for a long time, and then fermentation is happening and all other things.
Brutal.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like when we had Chris Aceto on, right? It's like, what is it? What is it? He's like, it's never changed. It's still chicken and rice.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Voodoo is what I always say. People always try some sort of voodoo at the end, and that you'll have a great prep, and then, all right, I'm going to do all this insulin, or I'm going to do all this wacky stuff that your body isn't used to at all, and you just destroyed it. I don't know how many times I I saw a picture of somebody on the stage. She would have turned pro, and it's like I can just see like one less thing you should have done, and you would have gotten your pro card. Just one little thing, and it's usually some sort of panicky voodoo thing at the end that they decide to do, and oftentimes a coach doesn't even know.
I want to mention this because every single time a bodybuilder comes on, I want to let them know we have this meat called Piedmontese. We work with them. Have you heard about them?
That's the one you were telling me about.
Yeah, you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's like the steak, it's just the way they do the cows or whatever, or breed the cows, but the steak is super lean. Like it's what is it, Andrew, in terms of flat iron?
My favorite is a flat iron. So it's 46 grams of protein and only like 8 grams of fat for the entire cut. It's insane.
Nice.
Yeah, dude, it's like when you look at like, do I want a piece of chicken or do I want this amazingly tasting steak? And when you see those macros, you're like, this is going to taste like a shoe. It's like, no, it's not the case.
Wow.
It's super tender.
What are they called again?
Piedmontese.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like especially with like way a lot of these bodybuilders prep, it could be something they could fit into their prep without going off their goals. In terms of
it sounds like from the data you just gave me is that it's equivalent to what a chicken breast is.
Right.
And
I think some of them are even leaner. Which doesn't make any freaking sense, but it's incredible.
Even their 96 for ground beef, a lot of times that kind of beef is too like chewy, but even that's really good.
Wow.
Yeah, you guys would enjoy it.
Definitely chicken breast gets old, if you're 4 times a day after months and months, and to be able to substitute with something more palatable would be nice. And that sounds like the kind of thing you can actually switch,
Yeah.
From a training perspective, what are some of your thoughts? What are some of your principles in terms of training? You guys like machines? You like free weights? Like combination?
You're the pro.
I like combination of everything. When I started, I did a lot of free weights, and I think that's great actually when you're starting and building the base, because free weights just stimulates whole body on different level than machine because of the balance and stability. But machines are also great to isolate certain parts and hit them. But I like everything what Milos Harchev, his theory about the training, that's my theory as well. So I like intensity, I like giant sets, supersets, volume.
And he does some tempo type stuff as well, right?
Yeah. So that's what I personally like, and I tend to go heavier before when I was younger, and I have way better results now with this system of training, and I feel better and healthier actually, less in pain, and my muscles grow faster.
You don't need to go as heavy nowadays.
Yes.
And then plus probably though, the amount of overall work you're doing is probably still quite a bit, even though the weight is less. Maybe there's more sets and more reps.
Yes, absolutely. And I train longer at the gym. Some people maybe wouldn't agree with that. They would say like, well, your session should be up to 1.5 hours and that's it. But sometimes my sessions are just long.
How long?
She'll disappear in there.
I disappear sometimes maybe 3 hours or more.
Wow.
But because it is the system of training, like supersets and giant sets, that requires some time. And I can go longer because I'm not going that heavy. So at the end, I feel that the next day more than if I go heavy, for example. But I think that that constant stimulation, and because I stay longer at the gym, I have intra-workout food, shakes. So there's usually like
I picture her sitting on a leg extension, just eating a sandwich, eating a pizza, donut.
That would be great. Cookies.
You know, kind of, I just to reflect on the weight. You know, you and I have the powerlifting background, and you always know when a powerlifter is dieted down because you can tell the muscles are flat. You know, they've spent years building a nice thick fascia to be really strong. And I remember my first show, I'm like, I am so lean, yet I have no lines in my legs because the fascia was just so thick. And so when you start to go a little lighter, and you focus more on filling the muscle, getting that muscle to be round, you're gonna look better than going heavy. And you saw that, I'm sure, the first time you died.
Yeah, you look like a square.
Yeah,
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Why don't I look like the other guys? Yeah. Yep.
What does your you said you have like intro workout nutrition? Like what do you just take, like liquid carbs or something else?
Yes, I do mix of Super Carb from Global Formulas. That's my sponsor. So I'm using their products for a long time and I'm super happy with their line. So Super Carbs, 1 scoop of that, and I mix with protein and BCAAs and glutamine. So everything together and just sipping during the whole entire workout. Because I think that we are in the specific state during the workout, and we should use that opportunity to just push nutrients to the muscle. I think it's way different than if you're using that shake before or after, right after. So intra-workout for me works the best.
That's a Milosh thing too.
Yeah.
Do you have anything post-workout as well, or did you just wait till you get home and eat? Or
Yeah, I have also post-workout. I usually get home right away. So I usually have carbs, clean carbs, and some easy digestible protein like egg whites usually. That's the first meal, and later I have something heavier, chicken or steak.
You know, you hear about like supplementation a lot within like bodybuilding. So what supplements do you guys think that all bodybuilders should be using? Like you mentioned glutamine and the intra-workout carbohydrate supplement. What else do you think is pretty damn useful? BCAAs.
For everybody. You don't have to compete. It's just necessary to you take care of your body, and is the best fat burner are BCAAs actually.
Really?
Yeah. And the glutamine also as well, besides that positive effects on your muscles, can reduce the bloating as well.
Okay.
So that was also the big part of my diet last year, to find a way how to feel less bloated after the meal, because I just tend to feel kind of heavy after. So I incorporate some digestive enzymes and probiotics, and also I reduce all gluten from my diet. I'm not gluten intolerant, but no lactose, no gluten. And I was following the lectin-free diet from one doctor. He's very famous on the internet. Everybody can just, if you type lectin-free diet, his name is gonna pop. It's great. It works amazing, and I couldn't believe, like, I'm not lactose intolerant, gluten intolerant, but when I remove all those products, my body's totally different.
Stomach midsection just sucked in.
Yeah. So they definitely cause some kind of inflammation, if not bigger reactions in your body. So you think like, I'm okay, I can eat lactose and gluten, I'm fine. But no, it's still those microinflammation inside that just can improve drastically if you remove that from your diet.
Was it Dr. Gundry?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like beans and nuts and things like that are just
Yes.
they're not easy to digest for most people.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
certain grains and things of that nature, they're just a little bit more rough. They might have a lot of fiber on the outside. Not like they're necessarily all bad for you. They might be okay for some people, but to, you know, have less bloat, or to like Stan Efferding with his vertical diet, he's got a lot of foods in there that are just easy to digest. You know, like he'd rather have someone have an orange rather than an apple, because the skin on the apple sometimes is a little bit rough on some people's stomachs, and just real simple stuff so that you can get from one meal to the next. And that in bodybuilding, that's kind of the trick, is you can't miss meals. You know, it's the other side of it, right? You can't say, "Oh, I'm too full from the last meal," especially when you're in a prep. You can't miss them.
Right.
Yeah.
This is pretty interesting. He has a yes and a no list on the foods that you can have and not have. There's a lot of stuff on here. I'm pretty interested in checking this out. Damn, that's crazy.
I'd say the other supplement, Arginine, you know,
Really?
pretty common. She, I mean, before every workout, of course, just for the pump, but she'll take it before she goes on stage to fill everything out a little bit.
What are the effects of Arginine? I've never taken it.
Oh,
before.
it's a vasodilator. So it'll pump muscle and nutrients into the muscle.
Yeah.
Blood and nutrients into the muscle. So it helps deliver some of that other stuff as well.
And within bodybuilding too, I used to hear of a lot of bodybuilders just totally avoiding sodium, or not totally avoiding it, but eating really low sodium. Is that still something that people do much of, or
They shouldn't.
not really?
No. I mean, sodium. I'm kind of like digging into my files here because I've been promoting more than I've been training. But you know, sodium is necessary to keep the muscle hydrated, and without it, you're just flat. So I mean, we just don't mess with it. You know, just keep it at a healthy level, and don't really pull any out, and don't load it. And that's when you get into voodoo. You know, that's when you see somebody who looks great all of a sudden turn flat or spill over. You know, just leave it alone. You know, if you're following your plan, you get all the sodium you need, and you don't really need to add anything to it.
Cool.
Awesome. You guys have been great. Where can people find you guys?
Well, we're located in Reno right now, but if they're looking to find us online, his website is centerpodium.com. And I'm usually on Instagram with all people who want to connect with me. I find out that it's easiest for me. Like I have a website, but it's just not working same as Instagram. So my Instagram is Bojana IFBB Pro. So that's the best way.
And you can find us at the Legion next week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they're at Legion Sports Fest. We powerlifting, strongman, armored combat, bodybuilding, some others.
Armored combat?
Yeah, these guys dress up in our like knights, and they wear armor, and they beat the crap out of each other, like with swords and stuff.
Damn.
Like our last one,
Wow.
They start their hit, you know, and then they just start pounding each other in the face with the metal helmet and the metal glove. It's really awesome.
And they look at you guys posing and like, you guys are crazy.
Weird. Yeah, so we're doing that at the convention center in Reno next weekend, and of course we've got a big pro bodybuilding show and an NPC show.
Sick.
Yeah, when's the next bodybuilding show?
That is next weekend.
That's next weekend.
Yeah, so the NPC show is that Saturday, and then we have IFBB, a huge IFBB Pro Masters event that Sunday.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again. We really appreciate having you guys on the show today. Andrew, want to take us on out of here, buddy?
I will. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode, especially everybody on the live stream. I'm trying to find his name, but somebody said that they were following you, Mark, for the past couple years. Lost over 100 pounds.
Whew,
now
damn.
Yeah,
Nice.
just doing keto and low carb type stuff, just the way you've been doing. So shout out to that guy. I'm sorry I can't find your name on here, so hit us up later in the comments or something. Huge shout out to Piedmontese Beef. You guys heard us raving about it just now. For more information on them, check the link in the description and use promo code PowerProject for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 more, you get free 2-day shipping. Please make sure you follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. My Instagram is at IamAndrewZ. And Nsima, where can people find you?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Inyang on Twitter. Mark?
I'm going to have Chris show me some posing in a little bit here.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
I didn't bring my tights.
I always have some with me. Don't you
Pair
worry.
of trunks.
Just go natural.
Go.
Please
No, don't. Just take it all out. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch y'all later.